All right, welcome, welcome. If you're new here, I'm so glad you came to join us, and I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're finding use from this. If you are watching on YouTube, go to the description and grab the handout for this session so you can follow along. And if this kind of legal technology talk is helpful, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. All right, so I'm going to let Beth take it from here, and we are talking about the version of you that works at night, I believe. She's going to clarify, and off we go.
Okay, so yeah, that is exactly what we're going to talk about, and that nighttime anxiety and waking up at 2 a.m., you know? Um, so yeah, it's 11:45 p.m. You've had an exhausting day. You put out fires, you manage the team. Finally, everything's quiet. You're drifting off that deep sleep when then ping, your brain wakes up. It isn't a loud alarm, it's a whisper. Did I tell Sarah to follow up with that Thompson lead? Did I actually see that fee agreement come back, or did I just imagine that notification? So now you're reaching for your phone, the blue light hits your eyes, you're checking email at midnight. Your brain is stuck in a maintenance loop, performing updates on information that doesn't have a secure home. This night version of you has to stay awake because your current systems aren't reliable enough to hold the weight of the firm's memory. So today we're going to outline a system and that version so that version of you can finally retire. So what is that 2 a.m. ghost? It's very common among professionals across many fields. Now stuff in our brains that happens at night shouldn't be discounted. I've had some killer ideas at 2 a.m. Um, what it shouldn't be doing is recapping the day because you think you missed something. Okay, so don't discount those 2 a.m. thoughts because some of those are pretty good. But your brain remembers at 2 a.m. that it was supposed to remind you of something, and now you're awake. That nagging in the back of your brain that just doesn't let you really relax is the anxiety of wondering if you forgot task and the anxiety that you will not remember tomorrow. And if your system doesn't give you some peace of mind for all of this, then it's just feeding the ghost. Unreliable systems and poor documentation is just what the doctor ordered to keep it in a good, healthy state and keep you working all night. So our goal is to create a robust system to house institutional memory. Then that starves the ghost because there's very little left that needs to take up your brain space. So here's a fundamental truth we have to accept. Your brain is a world-class processor, but it's a very low-quality hard drive. It was designed to solve complex legal problems, not to remember if a PDF was uploaded 3 hours ago. When a firm relies on the individual memory, we call that tribal knowledge. It's fragile. If you're tired, the firm forgets. If you're on vacation, the firm stalls. We want to move to institutional memory. This is a system where the status of every matter is visible to anyone at any time without asking a human being for an update. I want you to perform a mental audit right now. If you were totally unavailable for the next 48 hours, no phone, no email, could a stranger log into your system and know exactly what happened within the last any amount of time, really? Could they see the next move in any particular matter? If the answer is no, you aren't running a firm, you're carrying a mental load that is eventually going to break you. So to stop these mental loops, we have to stop using Lawmatics like a digital notebook and start using it as an external brain. Using the philosophy that is, if it isn't in Lawmatics, it doesn't really exist. Most firms use the note box for everything. That's a trap. If you have to read a 3-paragraph note to find a single follow-up date, your brain has to work too hard. The fix? Specific custom fields for things like current status, critical missing info, When you can glance at a pipeline and see the facts in your dedicated column, your brain stops wondering. You see it, you know it, you move on. And it takes a lot less time. All these tie into using precise data points correctly. Having them buried in the matter does nothing for improving clarity. And you've all heard me talk about the one thing that I don't really love about Lawmatics is the data presentation in a matter. But there's ways around that, utilizing reports to gather and feed you information. So you're not going in every matter and looking for things. You shouldn't be using it that way anyway. So in a way, I've kind of come to like that. Um, that should all, those reports should help you to clear up nagging questions and give your brain a space to relax. And in addition to that, requiring them to be updated by a similar strenuous process is just as bad. Using forms internally to update information and work in your system allows for that precision in data that helps to alleviate the stress and the confusion. And you know where everything is. Everything has a place, and you know that it's in its place. We have a field in our Lawmatics that's called current update. And if we did any work for your system, you probably have it too. I have gotten more pushback over that field than any other. Like, um, it is crazy. One team just wanted it off their forms, but they agreed to try it for 2 weeks. And then they came back smiling. It was so easy to run a report of what was going on in matters by just dropping a few words in that field. They saved countless minutes by running reports instead of looking through the notes in 20 different matters. It's just one example, but there's lots of others. Fields for why people didn't hire you is another great one to have. And don't let them get too complicated. Keep it simple. The visual accessibility allows you to put your mind at ease about a bunch of things at once. It can be in the form of a report or a quick look at a matter. It really helps to have a way to look at things in bulk without digging through a bunch of data to find out what you're looking for. Just to be clear, this field we've been talking about is not to replace file notes, as they're your history of what happened. They need to be there to see what's going on. They're for a quick update look to see where certain things are at in the system. So stop trying to remember to check in on people. It's a waste of your cognitive energy. Set up your automations. Automate the reminders for meeting, reminders for invoices, reminders for agreements. This gets it out of brains and into the system. Even if they're creating tasks for someone to place a call, that is so much easier to track and ensure things are being done. It gets them out of your brain and onto a track. You can even have cascading tasks that other processes that happen when a task is completed all on its own without you needing to do something else. So all of these things work to streamline your workflow and ensure that follow-ups and reminders are done. It not only frees up time in the day, but it also frees up your brain space. You don't wake up at 2 a.m. wondering if Mr. Smith was reminded of his meeting tomorrow or if he submitted his personal information form. Your system did it and let you know that he did his part or that he didn't, or it should, and it can. How many times a day does a staff member ask you, what should I do with this one? The fix? Build outcome-based forms for your intake team. At the end of an intake call, don't let them just save a note. Give them a selection to make. The automation behind the button moves the matter to the right stage and sends the appropriate email. The thinking was done during the system build, so you don't have to do it at midnight. Decision-based forms allow staff members to make clear, actionable choices at critical junctures of the process. This means when they finish an introductory call, they don't just save a vague note. They actively engage with the system and determine what the next steps are based on predetermined options. Excuse me. And this takes the guesswork out of what to do and the nagging wondering if you did the right thing. And these also have an additional bonus of requiring data entry for tracking that is done easily. The client says they're not interested, you can easily enter why they were not interested. And John, I'd like you to talk about the forms that we have in here and um, what all you use them for as well.
Yeah, so forms, we're not just telling you to do it. We run our consulting firm with Lawmatics as well because we practice what we preach and we believe it. So forms, I've renamed it because Beth knows I'm really picky on finding things because I just am. But like, let's say the intake form. It may not be how Beth would do it, but it's how I do it, but it's getting the same result. So I organize the fields in a way that are very conversational for me, but this is laser focused on intake, the one you're seeing there. I use other forms. If somebody is going to engage us for a specific project, we have forms for those different specific projects. And when I open it, it's only for that project. What is it going to cost? What is the next step? And I fill in a form that is laser focused for what I'm looking at for that moment, for that client, and feeding the information I need. So when I submit it, it's triggering everything I need, but I'm not looking through all this extra data that is going to sidetrack me. And then I'm going to
Hmm.
end up doing something else and forgetting to do this. Another really good example is running a maintenance program. Um, the overlay that we have and offer for Lawmatics, there is a form for the maintenance program. You pull it up, and if you want to know the status of somebody, but you don't want to go to the report, you can just type their name at the top of the maintenance. It'll populate that maintenance form, show me everything I want to know. It's not 10 pages long, it's just a short little form. And if I want to change something, I just flip it, hit save, and I'm done. It took me about 10 seconds. So that's how I use forms to stay laser focused on exactly what I'm doing. When somebody submits a payment, the way we do it, I have a thing that says payment received, and then it's going to trigger the next actions based on what I've selected. So forms are just help me as a scatterbrain keep laser focused in what I need to do and not get distracted.
Yeah, and focus on the one thing that John said there that you may not have picked up on is that our forms are not the same. I have a form that does one thing, and John has a form that has the same information, but it is arranged differently because that's how his brain works. He looks at my form, and there's one of my forms that he's going to redo, because he just told me the other day that he doesn't understand it. It makes perfect sense to me, but he doesn't understand it. So it's perfectly fine. You can set everything up to run in two different forms, one that makes more sense to one person, one that makes more sense to another. That's not an issue, and that actually should be done. And maybe if you're like struggling with teams that are like, I don't want to use that form, it doesn't make sense, you can actually sit down with them and go, okay, or we can sit down with them and go, okay, here's the information we need. How do you want to see it?
And Beth, I
Because
want to interject
sometimes that
on
makes
that
a big difference. Yeah.
because one of the big things for me is our naming conventions. Beth has very, very different styles of naming things that don't make sense to me of what something actually is. To her, they do. And I'm sure it's the same for her of how I name things. But a
Mm.
lot of the organization for me in a form is the field is locked in the background. That doesn't matter. But on the form, I can rename what each field is so it makes sense to me. And when I say I make it look different, that's a lot of what it is. It's just I don't understand what X goes across the street means. I want it to say this is their first name because that's what it is. So you can do those types of things, and that's what helps me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, because our brains work very different. Just have to adjust to that. Um, so by incorporating these drop-down options, you can streamline your process of determining next stage for each matter, allowing staff to quickly categorize and prioritize without second guessing their actions. Tasks are consistent, can be organized into a Kanban view, which is what you see here, to make daily task management more efficient for them. And that is kind of the goal, because the more efficient they are, the more they can get done, the more profit your firm has goes straight to the bottom line. So with automations being the being behind those decision-making forms, the system can automatically update the status of matters, create tasks, update data, send notifications. It eliminates the need for staff to manually track progress and ensuring nothing falls through the cracks. This means that your brain knows things are done and it's not dwelling on what you might have missed. And then the other part of that is closing the loop. Because to make this stick, you need to be able to audit those things. You need to be able to see that, yes, everything is good. Our health check is good. We don't have anything sitting in past that's not being done. We have all of these none good jobs here, which is really important. And then the Friday audit. So don't forget about how your brain works overtime on the weekends. And I'm speaking for myself here. I used to sit in the truck on the way to grocery shopping, and yes, I'm a passenger princess who husbands chauffeurs her around, and be looking through my phone to make sure I didn't miss anything, or replaying the whole week in my mind for the same reason. That's a horrible way to live. Now Friday afternoons are used to put my brain to rest for the weekend. Running through the week, checking task list, a quick check over the matters in play, and having a list generate with the most important information that is a critical part of the Friday audit. So every Friday at 4, you open your Lawmatics dashboard. You're not looking for work. You're looking for the institutional memory. Our goal is zero memory in your own brain. And every matter in your pipeline is organized and where it needs to be. Your brain is officially cleared to shut off for the weekend. The rule is simple. If it isn't in Lawmatics, it doesn't exist. But if it is in Lawmatics, you don't have to think about it till Monday morning, as it's there and it's safe and it's taken care of. By dedicating this time to review and update each matter, you can achieve a state of zero memory, allowing your mind to be free of worries and distractions over the weekend. Don't forget that if your brain still has something pop up over the weekend, write it down and add it to your audit for next Friday. That way you keep the chaos away. So when you're finding things on Friday or you're thinking of things over the weekend that, oh, I didn't check that. Now you can add that to your next week to remember to check that. And maybe you change a process to make sure data is somewhere else, that you can keep that information and don't need to keep it in your brain. So let's retire that night version of you. The ultimate goal of the system isn't just efficiency. It is the ability to wake up at 2 a.m., realize you have absolutely nothing that you need to remember, and go back to sleep. Today, identify one of those mental loops that keep you awake at night, and then put things in place to address those. So remember that tribal knowledge is fragile, but systems are resilient. And using structured fields, not just notes, data you can see at a glance is data you don't have to store in your head, and automate the handshakes. Let Lawmatics remember to follow up so you don't have to. And be able to rest at night and enjoy your weekends and know that things are taken care of out there. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a couple, of course,
Of course.
because my brain is always on overdrive. So this is very applicable to me. I was up till 3 a.m. last night coding websites and doing all kinds of things. So tribal and institutional memory, I think that's really important And you explained it, but it was kind of fast. So, because they are very different terms, but they're so applicable in how we operate, can you just give a real life example between the two so people can really relate to that?
Yeah. So, if and I'll use something kind of simple. Um, if institutional memory means, let's just say that I schedule an appointment for someone. Okay, I schedule a consultation and I need to send them a decision vault link to fill out. So I send them a decision vault link to fill out. And 3 days before, I need to go in there and check and see if it's done. All right. Now I'm doing this. And when you have, one consultation a day, that may not be that big of a deal. But if you have, five every day or more, that's a lot of work. Checking on, 3 days from now, I have these. Here's all these people. Let's go make sure they're all in there. If not, I got to follow up with them. I have to do all that kind of stuff. I need to know where that is. And so that is tribal knowledge. Nobody else knows to do that. You may have a task that says check to see if it's been submitted. Okay. I check to see it, if it's been submitted or not, and it hasn't. Now I need to go do this stuff. Does anybody else know what they're supposed to do if it's not submitted? Are they going back to a manual that says this is what you do if it's not submitted? Like, what's going on with that? That is not institutional system. That is tribal knowledge. And usually one or two people know that, and nobody else knows what's going on. In detail, they don't know what's going on. They know the general overall, but not that in detail stuff. So turning that into an institutional system is saying, all right, we're going to make Decision Vault talk to Lawmatics, and we're going to have Decision Vault tell Lawmatics when somebody starts it, and then we're going to have them tell it when they finish it. And now I can run a report every day for my meetings 3 days from now, and it's going to tell me which ones have been started, not finished, which ones have been submitted. I know all of this. And then if there's ones where people have started and not finished, now I can call that person. Well, Maddox has already sent them a text message by now and says, hey, you need this for your meeting. But I can now call that person and I don't need to look at every single one of them. I don't need to go into every matter and look at it. It's right there. It's in a report. I can see all five at once. I can look at it and go, three of them are submitted. One of them's been started. One of them they didn't do anything with. Excuse me. Let me call these two people and get going. That is a very basic example of that. But then you don't have waking up at 3 a.m. going, these meetings tomorrow, I'm not really sure they all submitted them or not. Because it's right there. You can see it. And you've checked it and it's been quick and easy to check and you didn't get distracted in the middle and forget to check meetings 4 and 5. Like none of that happens because you have that system in place and that's not tribal knowledge anymore.
I like that. And I'm going to tell you, if your brain is like mine, and the best example of my brain is I'm the person that I'm driving down the street. Did I turn off the stove? So I've learned things where I can take a picture of it off. So when I'm somewhere else, I can see there's the timestamp and it is off. I'm good. I'm still going to check it 14 more times, but I put a check and balance in for myself. And that's exactly what this is doing. And trusting your system that if you need triggers to show that it's actually doing something, have some triggers until you're like, it's doing it every time. Now this is just getting annoying. And you've trained your brain to accept the system is doing what it needs to do. Because in the beginning, you're going to want to look at it and look at it and look at it, but then it just becomes an annoyance. So the next one that I kind of was thinking about is the part of you that works at night and your brain won't shut off. Beth mentioned people knowing what's next without you there, including yourself and confidence in your system. And that's also the thing we talk about is what if you get hit by a bus? Is your system set up to go through that without you or guide someone to fill in? And that plays into you staying awake at night and confidence in your system. I had said some definite things about forms, but you asked me, so I don't need to really go with that. Um, Letting go at night. One thing is that it's okay to standardize also. This is another brain shift thing that I had to go through and I still do. If you're thinking, why did they not hire us? And it's really bugging you at 2 a.m., you look at the lost reason and there's not a custom sentence. It's a drop down and it was chosen price tire kicker. It's okay to not need someone to write a sentence. It's giving you what you need. You may want more, but what purpose will that serve? And when do you really want to see that in a report with pages of custom sentences? Are you ever going to read all of that? Yes, we have that option, but it's just an example to also let go of details that just don't matter at night and during the day. Trust your team, trust your colleagues, trust the system, trust yourself. If they didn't, the system if these things didn't happen, the system should be able to show you quickly in your reporting when things are missed. If not, set up a discovery with us because we need to help you get that going. Um, but just think about that with standardization versus all this personalization of sentences and all that. What purpose does it serve, and how is it going to help you grow your firm? Most of the time, the answer is I'll never read it. Another good example is Microsoft Teams. I have tons of custom teams feeding me what people are doing on our website. I can glance if I want, but some of those teams are at the bottom. So if I ever get curious, I can just glance at it, but they aren't that important. So they're kind of at the bottom. I have others that are important. So when somebody does something on our website, like schedules a discovery or pays their bill or submits a contact us that I want to respond to right away, that's right in my face in Teams. And there's no delay because I'm being notified of it. Um, that's kind of what I had, Beth. Just it's a brain reprogramming, is kind of what I take. But there are tools to dump at night. But don't let that dump lead you into an hour of doing it at 2 a.m.
Right.
Because if you think about one thing, then the next, then the next, then the next, you've got to work with yourself to really do some introspective work of, I can dump this and I can move on. That's all I have, Beth.
Hey, absolutely. And remember, we're here to help you out with any of that stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So, before we wrap this up, just a quick note for anyone watching on YouTube. We always stop the recording here and then open it up for live Q&A. That part isn't recorded, so people can ask real questions and talk through real situations. If you want to be a part of that conversation, we do this live every Friday at noon Eastern. It's free, and the link to join is in the description.